Hello and welcome to this tutorial in which we are going to look at the specimen paper for IT Paper 2 2025. Our focus is going to be on the video editing aspect, which covers task 9 to 12. Let's go through the question. Donna's Dance School wishes to create a number of short video clips showing dance styles around the world. We will create one of these clips to show the traditional Balinese Baronquette dance. The original video clip was recorded by GBR Video and the audio was recorded by KMB Audio. Now we are to open this file specdance.mp4 in our video editing software. And then the aspect ratio must be set to 16:9. And we have to remove the end of the clip so that it plays for 7 seconds. Then we can export our clip in MP4 format with a resolution of 1024 by 576. And then we give the appropriate file name. And in task 10, we take a still image of the first frame of this clip, save it as dance 1 in a JPEG format. Then we take a still image of the last frame of this clip and save that as dance 3. And then we save that one also in a format suitable for importing into our video editing software, which is obviously another JPEG. And then we are going to use the files we've saved in step 9 and 10 to create a video clip to match this storyboard. All text should be displayed in a consistent sans serif font. Don't use transitions unless instructed to do so. The original video clip recorded by GBR Video and the audio was recorded by KM. So that's another reminder. And then we start adding our clips to the timeline with time 0, time 4, time 8.2 seconds, time 15, time 28, and up to time 39.2. Then we have to export our video as Baronquette, followed by our center number and candidate number in MP4 format. So let's dive into Premiere Pro, where I have already selected my examination folder as my project folder. You can give it any name because this is not the name you are going to use in exporting your file. And click OK. So for now, what we have is a blank document. So we need to import all the necessary source files that have been provided for this file. When we make a quick reference back to our question paper, we've been provided with specdance.mp4, specdance2.mp4, and specvoice.mp3. So there are two ways of doing this. You can either go to File, Import, and select your file. Or if you already have the folder open with your source files, you can reduce the size a bit and select them and click and drag them into your project pane. So we begin by placing our file specdance on the timeline, and then we need to check for the sequence settings to ensure that it is 16:9. So we go into sequence menu, sequence settings, and from the video frame size, you check and it's 16:9. So let's say it is not 16:9 as you came here. Let's say we have a different figure like 700 and you have something like 35:18. The default figure that you can put in that you should always remember is 1920 by 1080. That will also give you 16:9. But since the file itself is already 16:9, we are not going to make any changes to this. So I'll click cancel. Next, we go into effect controls and let's make sure our video is on the proper scale. Under motions, select scale, and the scale slider we can drag to our left or right. In this case, let's drag it to our left till we see the edges of the video. Bring it back a bit, and then we can enter 50 here. Next thing is to trim off the end of the video so that only 7 seconds remain. And to do that, we can go into our timer here, and where it says the 2 seconds, we change it to 7 and change the microseconds to 0. And then press enter, and then your playhead moves accurately to this 7-second mark. Next, we pick the razor tool and cut along the playhead on both the video and the audio clip. Go back to your selection tool, select what is left behind the 7 seconds and delete. Next, we need to export this and give it the appropriate name. So we are going to go into File, Export, and select Media. Or with the timeline selected, when I say timeline selected, you see this thin blue line around it. You can press on Ctrl and M. So when we come to the output name where it says spec dance, we are going to change that to dance 2. So we click on it once, select our exam folder, enter the required name. The required name for our first file to render is dance 2, followed by your center number, which I'm going to make up, and a candidate number. Just click save. We can minimize this window a bit so that we can see the render buttons down there. Now we need to change the video size to 1024 by 576. So down here in the video section, we have this scroll button which can scroll down a bit, and there we see width and height. That is what caters for the resolution of the video. And beside it, we have this radio or checkbox that we need to click once to uncheck it to make it active. We also need to, in some cases, you also need to unlink this. So I'm going to enter the width, which is 1024, and for the height 576. Done. So we have our width and height correctly entered. So making sure your name is correct and your width and height is correct, all you need to do is press export. So we have our first file rendered. And the next thing we need to do is to take some still images of the same file. So we are not going to take it out of the timeline, with the playhead on the 0-second mark, we are going to capture a still image using this camera icon here. I'm going to click on it once whilst it opens the export frame window, and in here we are supposed to give it a name. So the first name we are supposed to give it is dance 1. That is for the still image. At the beginning, the format should be a JPEG, and the path should be your exams folder. So if I click OK, it's going to place one in our project bin and another copy in your exam folder. But to ensure that, make sure that this import to project checkbox is always checked. So I click OK. So here we have dance 1, we have a copy here. Next we need to move to the last frame of the same clip. We can expand this a bit so that we make sure we are on the last frame. So here, yes, just before it goes dark, this is the last frame. Once again I click, and we are going to name this dance 3. And the same folder, click OK. And then we have a copy in our project as well, because we are going to use it. So task 11 requires us to begin with our storyboard. So first of all, I'm going to take this out, or I'm just going to drag it to the side. Take note that what we created here is dance 2. So we are still going to need it in our storyboard, which is beginning with 0. So I'm going to go into the timer and enter 0 and just press enter. So my playhead is on the 0 seconds mark. And over there we are required to place the background image dance 1. So I'm going to place dance 1 in there. So we have dance 1. And we are supposed to place a title in the top left corner, Baron Kets. So I'll pick my type tool, click on the top left corner, and I can start typing. But I realize that when I click on the background, we have so many type tool options here, of which we are going to make use of. First of all, we were to make sure that we are using a sans serif font. My Premiere Pro's default font is Tahoma. You can also use Arial font. You can use Myriad Pro. Any fonts that don't have extensions at the ends are sans serif fonts. So let me begin by typing in the name. It's become very obvious that we can barely see what I'm typing. So I'm going to click on my selection tool. That selects the text entirely. And then I come into appearance down here. Change the color. I'll prefer something yellow. I can even add an outline to it. That will make it more distinct. A black outline, and we can change the size of the font. And I'm going to keep it at somewhere 80, and I'm going to change the font style. I think the Tahoma is too thin. Okay, let's change it to bold. I think the bold looks better. And the stroke size can also be increased here. Let me increase it just to say 3. 3 is still too small. Let me do 5. Yeah, I think 5 is a bit okay. Then bring it somewhere here. Top left corner as required. Now on the 4-second mark, we are required to do something else. So let's go to the 4-second mark. Type in 4 where the seconds is. And what is supposed to happen is the title text and the background remain with the subtitle Balinese Dance added to the bottom right corner. So since it's a subtitle, it's going to be a bit smaller than the original we have just created in the top right corner. And that we are going to place in the bottom right corner of this background. So once again, we pick our type tool. But before then, make sure no clip is selected in the timeline. At the moment, this is selected. So if we continue typing, it will add up to this clip. So click away. Make sure nothing is selected here. Now let's pick the type tool and start typing. You see that it instantly creates another clip starting from the 4-second mark. Now we need to resize this because it's a subtitle by reducing the size. We can come into our Essential Graphics panel, select our text, or make sure the selection tool is selected. Select our text, and let's reduce the size in the panel from 80 to say 50. And then with the selection tool still, we click and drag it to the bottom right corner. So first of all, we have our title Baronket appearing, and then after 4 seconds, the traditional Balinese dance also appears. Now back to our storyboard, we are to ensure that at 8.2 seconds, no text is displayed and video file dance 2 starts. So back in our timer, we can enter 8.2 seconds to see where the playhead ends. So the playhead ends around the end of the last text we added. Now we also need to extend the background to 8.2 seconds, and since there's no text from 8.2 onwards, we need to reduce our second text we added, this one, by clicking and dragging to meet the playhead. So everything ends at 8.2. Now we can add dance 2. We already have dance 2 in the timeline in its raw form, or you can go into file and import it from your exams folder. I'm just going to go by this, since it's going to start just from here, from 8.2, click and drag it till it snaps. So back to our storyboard, at 15 seconds, the background image dance 3 is supposed to be displayed. And then we are supposed to add the audio clip spec voice. So to add dance 3, we need to go into our project bin, where we have it here. So we can just click and drag it onto the timeline. But before then, let's make sure we have our 15 seconds. So in our timer, I'm going to type in 15 and see where it ends. It ends exactly where dance 2 ends. So I'm just going to add dance 3 to it till it snaps to the playhead. We are also adding spec voice. So let's look for spec voice in our project bin. Here is it. Click and drag it till it also snaps. So back to our storyboard at time 28 seconds, a smooth 2-second transition between 28 and 30 seconds into the video file spec dance 2. So once again, we are going to make use of our timer. Enter 28 seconds. And let's see where the playhead ends. Somewhere just before or just after the voice ends. And that is where we are going to add spec voice 2. But there's going to be a transition, so we need to extend dance 3 JPEG till it meets our playhead. So I'm going to click and drag till it meets at the 28-second mark. Then I go into the project bin and bring in spec dance 2. But before then, I need to trim off spec voice. So I'll select spec voice, pick my razor and make a cut. Pick my selection tool, select the cut and delete. Now I select spec dance 2, click and drag it till it meets dance 3. Now we need to add our transition. So to do that, we have a side menu here under project bin where you can drop down and see effects. Note that this is available if you are in the captions and graphics mode. If you are using an earlier version of Premiere Pro, you either see graphics only or captions only. So I'll select effects, and in here I'm going to look for video transitions, which we have here, and let's pick a simple one, the default one, which is cross dissolve. Click and drag it and drop it in between dance 3 and spec dance 2. But when we take a closer look, we realize that it only falls on dance 2 or spec dance 2. So to solve this, we select it, click on it once, go up into our effect controls panel, and under alignment we drop down and select center at cut. And you come back, you realize that the transition covers both dance 3 and spec dance 2. We can change the duration as required. This is 2 seconds by double clicking on the transition and changing the duration in here. So now we have a longer transition. So back to our storyboard at 39.2 seconds, we have to set a black background. Display appropriate credits that scroll up the screen. Include a text edited by with your name, center number and candidate number in the credits. But we must also note that in the preamble of the question, we were given some information as to the original video clip was recorded by GBR Video and the audio was recorded by KMB Audio. So in our timer, we type in the time required by the storyboard, 39.2, enter, and we have to set a black background. And in Premiere Pro, by default or by default, if there's no clip, it already gives you a black background. So our playhead is now on the 39.2 seconds mark. So all we need to do is select the clip there, that is the end portion of Spec Dance 2, pick our razor tool and make a cut. Pick your selection tool, select the residual clip and delete. Still with our playhead at 39.2, we pick our type tool and then we can start typing. So we were required to include edited by, I'll add my name, then center number and the candidate number I made up. Next, leave one space, then you can say video by, leave another space, audio recorded by, or you can just say audio by, so as soon as we started typing, we have our options in our Essential Graphics panel once again. So I'll click on the selection tool so that I have access to the text, and first thing I want to do is center align my text, and I would like to place it in the center of the stage. So I click on these icons you see here, vertical center and horizontal center. Next, to ensure that it scrolls up the page, I click away, click outside the sequence like this, and then go back to the panel and locate and locate the row checkbox. So click on it once and play back your text, and it scrolls up your sequence. I think this is a bit too fast. You can slow it down, and since you've not been given any specific time for our text to scroll, we can extend it a bit from the 5 seconds to somewhere 10 seconds. Now if I play back, it will scroll a bit slower. We need to check if all our clips are properly scaled. So starting from the beginning, I'm going to click on the dance JPEG, go up to my effect controls and try to scale down. Okay, so this is okay, so the 100 is okay. Then I come to my next clip. This is the Spec Dance MP4. Go back into the effect controls, look at the scale, try to scale down. Okay, so the black edge should be at 100. It's okay. So I move to the next one, which is the dance 3, and I also try to scale it down. It's also at 100, which is correct. And then I go to the last part 1. Okay, the last clip we added was spec dance 2. Click on it once, go to effect controls, and you see we try to reduce it, so I think that has to be around 67. 67 is okay, and then we are good to go. Lastly, let's export our video clip as baronket followed by a center number and candidate number, and the format must be MP4. So let's select our timeline, and then we go into File, Export, Media, and then under the output name we click on it once so that we can change it to what is required. Baronket underscore my center number underscore my made up candidate number. Then I click save. We are not making any changes to the width and the height, and then we click on export.
The baronket is a mythical beast symbolizing good. It combines the features of a tiger and an ox and protects the Balinese villagers from evil, which is represented in a dance like this.